Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To some of you, and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. Um, every time I've tried to record this, I've gotten interrupted, and I mean every time. There hasn't been a time I've done this and I haven't gotten interrupted, and I don't know if it ever will happen. But you've seen this title, and you know that I'm going to talk about Akash Singh and Jasleen, his wife. But I'm going to talk about something else that is even bigger than that. And I'm going to try to do it quickly in this part one and go more in depth in part two, inshallah. One of the issues is that it's actually a pretty major issue, and that is that, frankly, their culture is not going to work for us. And I don't want us to make the mistake of looking at their culture and thinking it's going to work for us when it couldn't possibly do so. When you look at the economies that have really made leaps and bounds since a long time ago, since major unfortunate incidents have happened to them, colonization, opium wars, two atomic bombs, another colonization, and a mass impoverishment, which was in fact done by the former colonizer, then you have to understand that what they've done is they have massively tried to cope and overcompensate. And what this has done is it has made them softer targets. They've only been allowed to get a little bit further ahead because of who they're not. Now that's sad, but that's the truth of it. It's about who they're not. So, because of that, I want you guys to stop and think about why that wouldn't work for us, why it can't. Prime Minister of one of them, Prime Minister of Japan, and shout out to S. Jock for coming through on Cash App and for sending this to me, called meetings at 3 a.m. and then said sleep is optional because she's what you call an overachiever. 3% of the population of human beings does not need full sleep. That's 3%. The rest of the human population needs between 6 to 8 hours, usually 8. They need that. It's not an option. They need that. They got to have it. And while a few times they can mess around and have less sleep than that is okay, you can't sustain something like that. And that's where the problem comes in. She's talking about it being optional on a sustained basis. And I want you all to stop and think about this. Look at her and you will see why the hell that can't work. Just look at her. She's exhausted. It's obvious. You can tell from the appearance. And I would venture to say that this makes her a bad person because she's looking and saying, well, because I can do this, I therefore, and this is not everybody in the population, but since I can do it, I'm going to go ahead and demand that everyone else do this too, and I'm going to make this a point. Well, damn. What does this do to normal people? It says to them, your normality is a liability, and we don't accept that. So now, dear God, who's going to tell her? Then you look at their neighbor, and oftentimes cultural rival. After what happened to them during the opium wars, they also have this overachieving mentality. Achieving is not the issue. It's overachieving. It's the notion of an imbalance. So much so that the reporter that I saw talking about it was from the third nation that I want to discuss because their culture does not work for us. We've made the mistake and I've talked about this before, and now I have to do it again. We've made this mistake and then repeated this mistake of looking at folks who have been treated differently by the same colonizers, by the same system, by the same opponents. And then we've said, well, they got their stuff together, and it turns out they don't. Akash Singh is an example of this. What did he do that was wrong? He didn't technically do anything wrong except try to give his wife credit for what he thought she did. That's all he did wrong. Nobody sat up and told him these are their manipulative tactics for which you must watch out. No one said this to him. No one told his dad. But his mom, I bet, passed that on to his sister, and his mother-in-law passed that on to his wife. Same thing happens here where I live. Manipulations go on again and again here because you know what? They can. That's why. Well, who's going to sit up and tell these men? I had to sit up and tell some recently that what they're facing in terms of preparation for their matrimony is a problem. Why did I have to tell them that? I had to say this to them because nobody was going to sit up and tell them that, hey, look, gentlemen, the real truth is that you're being manipulated because they can do it, and you're not being taught how to avoid that because your dad a lot of times is at work and you're out playing, which is fine when you're a kid, or you're at school, which is fine. But who's going to sit up and tell you the male version of what it is that your mom will tell your sister? Assalamu alaikum, sir. And so with that being said, I'm going to tell you why it is that we're simply better than the community from which Akash Singh comes. But also how we need to stay better, because it's not automatic. One reason we're better, just plain old better, is because we didn't side with the oppressor. See, China, Japan, Korea, India pretty much looked at the whole color scheme of the world and said, as collectives, they pretty much looked at the color scheme of the world and said, oh yeah, mass is better. I mean, they weren't willing to be as violent against us as the colonial oppressor was, but they pretty much looked and said, well, yeah, the one that oppressed is better than the one that they oppressed. They're better than us, and they're certainly better than these darkies. Even though we wouldn't have any music and fried chicken without these darkies. Mass is better than them. And this acceptance is partially why it was that they were not trodden worse than they were before, during, and after colonization. Had they been darker, or even had solidarity with darker people like us, that's what would have happened. We didn't necessarily en masse side with the oppressor. We were split. We've had traitors. We did not become collectives of traitors and white supremacists. They did. It's in their culture. Cultures, I should say. That's what makes it so ucked up. They're not all the same. All of India is not the same. The North is not like the South. The way that Indians are getting bashed now by the whites is an embarrassment even to the Southerners, because they don't do the same things the Northerners do. Y'all can remember my live from years ago with Torch Blaze. We were on for hours. Shout out to him. They're not the same. Not even linguistically. But yet and still, we can see the color hierarchy that goes across the globe. That's one thing that could give men and women of our own people, our own race globally, some sort of angst. Why the hell is everybody agreeing on the same thing? But then again, when you realize that Satan is real and that he hates Adam and Eve and how Adam and Eve looked, then it begins to make sense. Alaikum salam. How's everything? So yeah, gentlemen, I'm going to tell y'all straight. We're better because we didn't side with the oppressor. So when our women, or what we're supposed to be our women, when not our women, get up and bash us, they're wrong. Because they're siding with the oppressor. And we've seen that in the case of that girl in Baton Rouge, or that young lady in Baton Rouge who just got killed by one of Massa's grandkids, according to what the police are saying. He's not been convicted yet, but according to that. Well, her friend is like, I swirl, I want to give you one of them W men. So I mean, goddamn. You see what's going on? That's the difference. As men, we did not just submit. As men, they began to, and I don't know if they got it from their ladies or what, but at some point, these men in these places began to submit. And now they've got this culture of overachieving and no balance and just, you get the idea. Overachieving. You don't need sleep. Sleep is optional. We believe in achieving, but we also don't believe in exhausting ourselves. In Japan, they overwork until they die. That's why the smart guys just lock themselves away and say, screw it, I'm not working at all. For what? They're sick of the society because the society wants to turn them into workhorses, but nobody owes them anything no matter how hard they work. Now, we got some conservatives that want to say the same things to us. Black conservatism is a moral stance, but we got some political conservatives and Republicans, MAGA supporters that want to turn around and say the same things to us. If we are celebrating that MAGA's finally giving the Indians their inward wake-up call, we have no business sitting up and looking at MAGA and acting like, oh, they're on to something or they're right about X, Y, and Z. They'll say the right things for the wrong reasons, just like their non-white supporters will say the right things to us, but for all the wrong reasons. As a matter of fact, MAGA represents the wrong reasons anytime they say the right things. Keep this in mind. We are better than them because we did not side with the oppressive. So when our women side against us, which they often not our women side against us, it is not because we provoked it. When their side against them, it's a question mark. Maybe they provoked it, maybe not. We don't know. But when they start coming to us, and this is important, when they come to us and start saying, well, y'all were right, y'all wanted something, the proper response is to say, yeah, we were, but we told you so. If you had listened to us, you would have been right too. No sympathy, no cooperation. Thanks for listening. Till next time.